This is Crimson 606 Tool. Thank you for my video. All catch me on the social media platforms. And if you see some great art, hit my DeviantArt art page up. And finally, support my Patreon. Thanks. Alright guys. I'm okay, so this game is called Gym Wars and whatever. And I'm actually playing it because okay, so one of the things that I fucking hate with modern gaming, there's a lot of great free to play games, but a lot of games require like fealty and loyalty to motherfucking actually have a good fucking time. So this is a game called Gym Wars. I don't know. It is a game where fuck. Okay, so it's a match 3 game, match 3 or more, and I really only like playing one mode of the game, but you got to play so many other modes of the game in order for you to get a map in order to play this mode of the game. And this shit is just like, it irritates my soul, but I love this fucking part of the game. So, yeah, you seeing me actually get into it. So I owe you guys a story. I know I've been actually trying to do more streams since I paid for that Restream subscription. And you know, yeah, I've been trying to do more of those. So what happened was I took a break. I planned on spending some time with my friend, and we spent some time at a little romantic getaway. It was fucking awesome. It was only one night, but it was just fucking awesome. And this is why, if it ever came down to like, if it just like, everybody needs that vacation. Everybody needs that time off, and I am glad that somebody cared enough to give me some time off and spend some time with me. It's fucking awesome. And yeah. Sorry guys, this is, as you can see, my turns go down, and once I get 4 in a row, it actually either doesn't eat up a turn or it gives me an extra turn. So yeah, this is one of those you can't just go through and make. Yes, this shit is crazy. And I'm gonna get to the video in a second. I'm just this part of the game kind of always gets me. Shit. And one day I may actually play a full regular game, but like when I did my login bonus, I actually got 2 free maps, so I was gonna play the shit out of it. Fuck. Ah, son of a bit. All right, at least I get the shit to pop off at the end. I got one more. But yeah, shit, man. Like, so okay, without getting too fucking graphic, um, my friend, she lives in Indiana, so I drove there, and she's been going through some stress at work. I've, of course, been going through some stress at work, and about 3 weeks ago, or a little bit longer. She said, "Hey, get some time off." Now, mind you, this is the same person that I spent my birthday with. We ended up going to Wisconsin Dells, and she made the joke, "Hey, I'm just gonna send. I'm just gonna take you to one of those hotel rooms with the pool in it, and you won't have to worry about anything else." And I thought she was bullshitting, but like for real, like this shit was awesome. Like it's fucking awesome. And I'm a pool fanatic. Like I don't know if you guys caught some of my videos earlier this year where I actually would go to the pool on Sunday mornings and actually swim to try to be a little bit more fit before the fucking weather broke, and I um I was able to ride my bike, but yeah, it was fucking awesome. It's nothing like swimming in the pool naked. I'm gonna be honest with you. Swimming in the pool naked with somebody that you can be naked with, that shit is awesome. I think what I want to do is actually go to a new resort, and there's actually one out here in my neck of the woods. Um, I don't know. Just want to go to a fucking nudist collie. Shit seems like it's fucking fun. What else? Oh, there we go. Move right there. Yeah, I am. But yeah, no. This and I made a promise that fuck. I made a promise that I was gonna bring Chinese food because the area that she's in it doesn't really have great Chinese food. Brought Chinese food, and man, it was fucking pretty nice. And I'm rambling on about this, but it was man. So in case you ever guys ever see like a situation where you guys see that I'm about to end streaming abruptly, is usually to talk with somebody who actually fucking loves to listen to me and doesn't just sit back and watch me online. But anyway, what's going on, people? What's going on? Um, I got 10 moves, and I'm actually gonna get to a. I got 10 moves, and then I'm gonna actually get to a new um, Conan Exiles. And my fucking Exiles base has actually been pretty nice, pretty sweet. Um, shit. Hmm. So some other stuff. So I know you guys have been seeing me do a lot of Of course, I'm not gonna talk much about Anime Midwest, even though I'm still like the reason why I think I enjoy Anime Midwest a lot more than I did a lot previous other conventions because I actually had a table, and so I'm actually trying to get another booth. Damn, that shit was good. I'm trying to get another booth around around fair around my house, where it's actually a little bit differently. It works a little bit different than what Anime Midwest was, and shit. Damn it. Okay, cool. So it's gonna be a little library convention. I'm just waiting back to hear from it. And oh shit, T. I also have I also have another one that I am officially booked for. It's in September, and of course, I'm booked for the Mighty Con in October. So a lot of great fucking things are coming up with my art, and Anime Midwest was just like the gateway of me learning some shit to do a little bit more. Um, a little bit more. Damn, would this turn ever end? Like, but me actually learning a little bit more of what to do, what works. That's what it symbolized for me, and I think I'm gonna try to just do a lot more with it. My dream is always to actually abandon the corporate world and do more of my art shit because I don't know about you guys, but the way a lot of corporations are doing nowadays, the way they fucking shit up, you gotta have a plan B. And I think I was never one to actually be my own boss with shit, but nowadays and let me bring up the chat while I'm at it. A lot of things now. I don't know. You just gotta be starting to do shit more and just like diversify your income and spread your revenue stream. And I don't know. I'm fucking acting crazy. Oh, speaking of which, I would encourage everybody, if you are so inclined, I would encourage everybody if you go to my Crimson 60620 PS4 gaming page on Facebook and just hit that follow. Um, I'm asking people to, if you're encouraged to, is to go there and actually follow the page. I multi-stream to not just YouTube and Twitch, but I multi-stream to Facebook as well. And yeah, yeah, I'm trying to actually be a little bit more diversified. Also, I know I have that my Patreon page, and quite frankly, I think I'm gonna start doing more artwork on my Patreon page. I have some things that I want to actually put out there that may not fit well for. It may be fitting more to uh, monitor audience. Fuck it. Stop being cryptic. I'm starting to draw more risque and nude female models. I can't exactly put them on YouTube or Facebook without getting the band hammer, but I can put them on my Patreon, and you guys can actually see me talk about doing it or actually doing more art. And I'm talking all of this because I'm waiting for this game to load up. So, yeah. Also, um, I'm looking to try to be a part of different, just my personal goal. I'm looking to actually be with a couple of different forums and actually expand just conversations and expand how people people respond to people on the internet. Shit, I am somebody who likes to argue. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, you guys haven't seen the extra work I've done on fucking Conan. So I'm basically trying to create a monster, and this was only supposed to meant to be a small little base. Unfortunately, it's turned into this shit. Anyway, we're gonna talk about Rucker Bergman in a second. I'm just walking around and trying to find some things. Oh, my smelter's almost done. Thank fucking God. All right, so, God damn it. All right, all right. So, the fuck was I about to do? Okay, that's where that's at. Okay, cool. Um, all right. Yep. So let's talk about Rucker Berkman again and how to build a better world. Because, bleeding heart, liberal and shit. So, god damn it. I forgot to have my headphones hooked up. Give me a second, guys. Let me change these settings right quick. So I have actually, I've looked at how to fucking fix the lag of the stream. I know what it actually is when I have to do. Let's see if we can play it. Nope, not working. Sorry about this, guys. That should be a little bit better. All right. All right, all right, all right. So let's hear our good friend Rucker Berkman.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming tonight, and I would like you all to join me in welcoming our guest, who I think you all know, the wonderful Rutger Bregman.
All right, so we're doing a returning champion Rutger Berkman, the guy who embarrassed Tucker Carlson, the guy who has embarrassed billionaires at Davos. This guy in particular, and we're just gonna hear him out and see how he feels. Like, he's been having rockstar fame basically since this shit happened, and who can blame him? But yeah, let's hear him out.
So there is so much to talk about. The first thing I want to say is that Rutger's book, which actually I've just been talking to him about, I think is kind of a manual for a new generation. If you haven't read it, buy it. Get Rutger to sign it at the end. It's absolutely essential reading.
Stop shilling your book.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's a must read.
Stop shilling a book. By the way, you can visit my merch store at Streamlabs/Crimson60620 or my Etsy store at etsy.com/shops/Lone Sage Art. Well, stop shilling.
Read. Yeah. I think the easiest thing to do is to start off with a little bit of, by way of preamble, a clip of you at a certain event, a certain alpine event.
Oh wow, they're about to actually show the actual on stage shit. This shit was funny, but here we go.
I know which clip you're
in
talking
January,
about.
and maybe we can see how that goes. Let's see if here we go.
You jumped.
Sorry, seems like they have as much issues with their show as I do.
The Davos one first.
This is my first time at Davos, and I find it quite a bewildering experience, to be honest. I mean, 1,500 private jets have flown in here to hear Sir David Attenborough speak about, how we're wrecking the planet. And I hear people talk in the language of participation and justice, and equality and transparency. But then, I mean, almost no one raises the real issue of tax avoidance, right? And of the rich just not paying their fair share. I mean, it feels like I'm at a firefighters conference and no one's allowed to speak about water. I mean, this is not rocket science. I mean, we can talk for a very long time about all these stupid philanthropy schemes. We can invite Bono once more, but come on, we gotta be talking about taxes.
Yeah.
That's it, taxes, taxes, taxes. All the rest is bullshit, in my opinion.
I actually came because I do believe we have an issue here. But I have to say, honestly, this is a very one-sided panel. You know, frankly, what people really want is the dignity of a job. I'd like for the panel to talk about beyond taxes, which every one of you have talked about. The only thing you've talked about in this whole panel on inequality, what can we really do to help solve inequality over time beyond taxes?
Let me tell you something.
Oh, the little millionaire and billionaire feelings are hurt. Oh. It shouldn't be about just taxes. It shouldn't be about just taxes. Oh, hey, feelings is hurt. Oh, po baby. Oh, you don't want to pay your taxes. Oh, no give a fuck. Dude, suck the fuck up. We gotta pay our taxes. So do you. But let's continue.
We're talking about jobs, but the quality of those jobs with poultry workers in the richest country in the world, the United States. Dolores, one woman we work with there, told us that she and her co-workers have to wear diapers to work because they are not allowed toilet breaks. This is in the richest country in the world. So don't tell me about low levels of unemployment. You are counting the wrong things. You're not counting dignity of people. You're counting exploited people.
I want to. Well then, so Rookie.
Damn. Oh my God, like she went hard. Like, you shouldn't have to. I mean, like, only people that should be coming home smelling like piss and shit are fucking plumbers and sewage treatment people because that's their job. You should not have to fucking wear a diaper to work because you can't take a fucking bathroom break. Fuck you if you think that's right. Fuck you if you truly believe that workers have it easy now. Fuck you. I am so motherfucking serious. Because, okay, story time. Now, I've complained recently about my job. So, I'm trying to market. Definitely trying to market. But it's on me to say that my job is... It's my fault that my job is shitty. Like, people literally actually believe that. To say, what did you do to not have... You should be working harder. And it gets to a point where other employers, when you set an absolute standard minimum of what it would take for you to work at their job, they act like you fucking told them to go jump over the motherfucking moon. Because employers like to have all the power, all the say in what goes on with employees. And here, employees are effectively stuck with, well, you take what job you can get. That's your job. It is what it is. No! Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck. What the fuck? I don't know how that got right there. Okay, cool. It is what it is, or it's your job. No, fuck that. Employers need to understand that fucking employees, that's why they call human resources. Oh, shit. A lot of places don't even give a fuck about the natural resources. But still, let's continue.
You're not the Messiah. You're a very naughty boy, aren't you? Can you say a little bit about that moment which went viral? Was it in the true Oscar Wilde fashion well-planned spontaneity? How had you thought it through?
Well, it was a little bit planned. So I was invited to Davos to obviously talk about my book, right?
Oh, I love
mainly
this clip.
about universal basic income, which has become quite a popular idea in the past couple of years, especially in tech circles, actually. A lot of people in Silicon Valley are enthusiastic about basic income as an idea to do something about the threat of automation, robots taking our jobs. So my plan was just to, well, basically promote the book. But then...
Okay, so next question.
And then...
Okay, so he's being extremely coy and modest to an extent, but he's not like this, but let's go.
I became more and more uncomfortable during the whole conference, actually. And I was at a couple of private panels, because a lot of panels there are not accessible for journalists. And I tried to sort of raise the elephant in the room, taxes, tax avoidance. And the response every time was quite aggressive. They didn't really like me talking about that. So it was only the day before, because I knew on the last day, on Friday, I was going to do this televised panel.
And this was your shot. This was your chance to say something. Yeah,
exactly. So I just went back to my hotel room, and I prepared this speech. And actually, if you see the full video, you can hear the moderator asking me a question, something about poverty, something about basic income, blah, blah, blah. And I just ignored the question and just gave my speech.
Okay. So having done that, we move on to clip 2, which is when Tucker Carlson, of Fox, makes the foolish error of thinking that he can
was wrong with that my door, but all right,
see
cool.
how it went.
You jumped the bandwagon. You're all like, oh, I'm against the globalist elite, blah, blah, blah. It's not very convincing, to be honest.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up, because you're a moron. I tried to give you a hearing, but you were too annoying to be.
You can't handle the criticism, can you?
There we have Tucker Carlson versus Rutger.
We got to be talking about taxes. That's it. Taxes, taxes, taxes.
All right, let's see.
Okay, now let's look at Carlson Gate. Now, you must have known going in that he has tried to shift his position.
Yeah.
And to kind of colonize some of the things that have interested progressive thinkers. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the conversation and why it ended up with Tucker seriously losing it.
Well, I was surprised by the invitation, to be honest. It was on Monday, actually the middle of the night. It was 2 a.m. in Holland, so 6-hour time difference. It was 8 p.m. in the US. And just the Friday before that, I had a short brainstorm with a couple of friends from The Correspondent, the journalism platform that I work for. And we were just, drinking beers and thinking about, wouldn't it be fun to call Tucker Carlson a millionaire funded by billionaires? So then over the weekend, I was moving places, so I had no time to think about the whole interview. And then on Monday, just 2 hours before it, I realized, okay, I got to do this interview. And the cab picked me up, and here I was basically in a very quiet city in this studio with one producer. And I said, you know what? This is the first and probably only time I'll be on Fox News. I'm going to throw a hand grenade in there. Let's see what happens.
He insisted you'd never watched it, didn't he? I mean, he claimed that it was literally impossible that you could have watched it.
That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very strange moment.
So then I said to this producer, I said, can you possibly record it so that I can show my friends that I actually called Tucker Carlson a millionaire funded by billionaires?
Wow.
That was really important to me at the time. He said, no, I can't do that. I don't have the equipment for that. I said, no worries, I'm just going to do the interview. Let's see what happens.
Right.
So then I did the interview, and I just thought the whole thing was hilarious. He was just shouting in my ear, and I don't know, he just completely lost it. And then this producer came walking into the studio, and he's like, I recorded the whole thing. And then we started drinking beer, and that lasted for like an hour or so.
I think Tucker probably had a drink too afterwards, if not before.
And an hour later, I was back in the cab to my home. And that was the first time I watched the video. I was like, holy shit, this is something. Yeah.
So, one thing that unites the Davos clip with the Tucker clip is that they can't handle it. Mm-hmm. What is it about what you're saying that drives a certain kind of millionaire or billionaire completely mad.
Well, it's obviously the place where I'm saying it.
Sure,
You know, the
the
things
context.
that, exactly, the things I was saying were supported by the vast majority of American people, right? 75% of Americans are in favor of higher taxes on the rich. You can find similar figures here in the UK, you know? Most people want the rich to pay more in tax. And yeah, it's just that normally at those kind of places, people just aren't there. And it's
That's the thing. When it comes to, if you actually just poll people, people want the rich to pay more taxes. They do. It's out there. And the rich may not like it, but they want the rich to pay more taxes. See, here's the thing. And I'm going to say this. And it's not even that they want the rich to pay more taxes. It's just that we want the rich to return what it was at one point, to return back to the status quo. The fact is, the rich used to pay this much in taxes. They used to pay a shit ton more taxes than what they pay now. The fact is, they did little tricks and turns to actually cut taxes. And the burden is shifted to the middle class and to the lower class. And then you get these things where people don't have enough, they don't have enough overall income in order to make the fucking economy grow. And what kills me is, if we had a fucking Keynesian economy, so much shit would be better. However, people looking for the short-sighted gains. They looking to, in order to make more fuck you, pay me money. And the shit is just not cool. Not cool at all. So, yeah, that's the thing, and that's what's happening. And it was funny because Tucker Carlson would probably want to claim to be a self-made millionaire, but his father married money, and he was a millionaire funded by billionaires. But, you know, let's continue.
It's not a coincidence that Fox News decided not to air it, right? It's just that in this era of smartphones, yeah, sometimes.
And is it
that doesn't
also
work.
because it's frankly something that in that context and lots of other contexts too, just saying we need to raise taxes has become almost, I mean, heretical to the point of unsayability.
Yeah.
And you were genuinely saying something that I think they were not expecting to hear.
Yeah. And that is fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
I think that 10 years ago, it would have been unimaginable
Totally
for
unimaginable.
a historian to go viral with a speech about taxes.
Yes.
So I think that just shows you that I'm part of a much wider movement of many more people, and often young people, who've just shifted the whole political debate.
Yeah.
And now suddenly we're discussing ideas that were dismissed as completely unrealistic not very long ago.
All right, so, and you actually get it with the political candidate Andrew Yang, which his universal basic income is quite literally shit, because it's basically, we give you money and we don't have to pay other shit. It's like your parents telling you to go out and get a job, and right after that they don't give you an allowance anymore when they know you're trying to save up to buy a fucking vehicle. And follow me at this analogy. And they said, no, you're not self-made. Well, I got the job in order to get the car faster based on what you're already giving me, but I'm not self-made now? Come on. But let's continue.
The same is true for basic income, actually.
Absolutely. Let's meander through the book a bit and its arguments, because I think it's very important to emphasize that the book, A, is very readable, and also it's not just about economics and public policy, it's also about psychology and ideas and their power. And one of its central contentions is that when the crash happened, there was a kind of moment of cognitive dissonance, which you talk about. There was no, people at least didn't think there was a readily available idea or set of ideas with which to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And to explain this point properly, maybe we should go back all the way to the 50s.
Yeah.
Because what always fascinates me about the rise of this thing we call neoliberalism, or the whole Reagan and Thatcher phenomenon, is that it didn't start in the 70s or the 80s. It actually started in the 50s with people like the economist Milton Friedman or the Austrian philosopher Friedrich von Hayek, who came together in this place called Mont Pelerin in Switzerland. And they founded this Mont Pelerin Society. And back then they said, we're the real radicals right now. You know, in the 50s, everyone was basically a socialist, or at least a Keynesian. They believed in big government. But we had tax rates of like 80, 90% for the very rich. Unimaginable right now, but that worked pretty well in this golden age of capitalism. So they said to themselves, we're the radicals, and what we need to do is start developing our ideas, you know, building our institutions, our think tanks. And this will take years and years and years. But at some point, there will be a crisis in the current system, and then we can take over.
It works.
This is exactly what happened in the 70s with the stagflation and the oil crises, and then Reagan and Thatcher came on the scene. But if you want to understand those politicians, you really got to go back all the way to the 50s. Now, what I think happened...
So, what he's talking about specifically is how Milton Friedman actually started the whole austerity type thing and cutting government and all that other good bullshit, which turned out to be one of the fucking worst ideas that has ever befelled governments and countries. But, you know, all it did was lead to a massive number of stagnated wages and, yeah, fucking over everybody. How nice.
In 2008 is that we had another crash, obviously, where it was a great opportunity to, you know, to inject new ideas, basically in the bloodstream of thinking, but they just weren't there. So the issue with many people on the so-called, how do you want to call it, the left or progressives, was that they knew very well what they were against a lot of things, right? Against austerity, against homophobia, against racism, against growth, against climate change, basically against everything, but not what they were for.
All right, so this is actually a pretty good thing to actually say. When you build a coalition around what you don't like, it's easy to get that coalition going, and it's easy to say, hey, we don't like this. But when it comes down to it, just saying we don't like this doesn't actually secure anything. Because what's going to end up happening is, when you build a coalition around what you hate, it causes a lot of fucking problems. That's why you see a lot of the, like, when you look at the non-believers or skeptic community, you see some people that just gravitate towards what they don't like, and it becomes effectively a shit show versus a belief or an idea that they like. It's one of those things where you see fucking cults form up about what you don't like, and the minute that your cult leader says or does something that you feel that they shouldn't, then the audience turns on the cult leader. And quite frankly, that's why I like building a coalition of people where it's based on a shared goal, not a negative connotation, but hey, we believe in this. So let's continue.
Like they had sort of discarded the whole idea that you need some kind of utopian vision of where you actually want to go next. So that was a problem back then. But the exciting thing, actually, in that respect, the book is already a little bit outdated, maybe, because in the past couple of years, things have changed so much. If you look at a politician like AOC now in the United States, I mean, she's the person I've always been dreaming about, the kind of politician, right?
Yes, I think.
So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Pause. Like, you can't say she's the type of person you've always been dreaming about. That sounds a little bit creepy. I know he's joking, but that sounds a little bit creepy, dog. Just a little bit creepy. But let's continue.
But why the lag? Because it is interesting that, you know, 08 was such a moment, 08, 09, and But really what it produced was a bundle of responses.
Yeah.
Fiscal conservatism, quantitative easing, a kind of review of the role of the state, an argument about austerity. But it didn't produce an idealism. And I just want to press you a bit further on why that should be so. Because it's not as if there weren't intelligent, progressive politicians and thinkers around. What was, I mean, as you said, they were against things, but what was holding them back psychologically from articulating a vision of optimism?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just that the only thing that they could come up with was, about going back of ideas to the 70s,
were they
the
still
80s.
because the left or the progressive movement parties of the 90s had been so obsessed by discipline and message discipline. I wonder whether they were still
It might
held
be a
back by that.
generational thing as
Yes,
well, right?
I think so.
So I was born in 1988.
Yeah.
Right? It was 1 year before the fall of the Berlin Wall. My generation is not
Okay.
traumatized by the Cold War.
Yeah.
When they say, ooh, that's Venezuela, that sounds like communism,
Yes.
we say whatever, you know? It's just...
So that's actually a really, really poignant point. A lot of, you see some of these people that are from a certain generation are opposed to socialist programs, and they reference back to the communists that were in Russia, where no, socialism has, like we did with Richard Wolff, socialism does have a, there are different competing ideologies in socialism versus just everything is going to be like Russia in the 70s and 80s. No, that's not what it always is. But let's continue.
It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the defining moments for us were things like 9/11, obviously,
Yes.
and the financial crash. And we came of age in this era of inequality that was spiraling out of control. And it's really now that you especially see people rallying around issues like climate change, and that more and more people realize that actually, if you want to be a realist today, you need to be quite radical. It's just, if you say, oh, I'm a moderate, I'm a centrist, and I just want to tinker a bit out around the edges, that is like the most irresponsible thing when you think about an issue like climate change. And we need this massive transformation of the economy and move to zero emissions in just a couple of decades. You know, we need to do things that we haven't done ever before in peacetime. And that's the realist position, because the alternative is much worse.
So I suppose the beating heart of the book is that there are many things in it, but the notion of universal basic income. And for me, one of the most interesting aspects of that was your exploration of the ancestry of this idea. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it has some surprising advocates, doesn't it?
Sure, yeah. It's actually a quite old idea. It goes back like 200 years. But maybe the most interesting moment was at the end of the 60s, when almost everyone believed that some form of basic income was going to be implemented in the United States and in Canada. And what happened back then is that
so
there was actually
let me
this
just
guy
talk
called
about-
Richard Nixon, of all people.
He's going to go through his Richard Nixon things. Let me just talk about what I'm trying to do right now. I'm actually trying to build a third super layer, where up here on this top area, it's going to be another altar. So yeah, that shit, this shit is going to take forever. But let's continue.
The conservative president.
Well-known progressive.
Yeah. And he was like, you know what, if everyone loves this idea, sure, let me be the president that makes history. So he had a bill for a modest basic income that got through the House of Representatives twice. And then it hit the Senate floor. And only there it was actually killed by Democrats. Not because they didn't like the idea of completely eradicating poverty. They loved the idea. But they wanted a higher basic income.
Yes.
So they had this idea like, oh, we just wait for a little bit and then we'll have a better basic income a couple of years later. It's an astonishing history. At the same time, what happened back then is that you had these huge experiments with basic income, where they gave thousands of families a basic income, and they had lots of researchers studying the effect.
Like the Winnipeg example you gave.
Yeah, that was one in Canada, but you also had 4 major basic income experiments in the US. Now, there was one experiment in Seattle where they found a lot of positive results. Healthcare costs went down, crime went down, kids did much better in school. It's really an investment that pays for itself. But then the problem was that they also discovered that the divorce rate went up by 50%. So, yeah, I guess there were a lot of women saying like...
So this is, and I'm pretty sure that racism had something to do with it as well, because the poor black folks was actually getting some money, so we need to stop that shit quickly. But yeah, let's continue. Not only are women getting their freedom, but the black folks too. But let's continue.
I don't want to live with that prick anymore.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah. So...
Bye, Felicia.
That was problematic, and many conservative people said at that point, we don't want basic income anymore. This is going to make women much too independent. And then...
That's fucked up. Like, quite literally, this is going to make women too independent. So fuck them.
Only 10 years later, they actually found out that a statistical mistake had been made.
Yes.
So in reality, the divorce rate did not go up at all.
Yeah.
It's sometimes these bizarre coincidences that matter a lot in history. And that's what fascinates me.
There's a series of objections to UBI which are worth going through, because you knock them down in the book, but I think they're worth some of them are worth mentioning tonight. I mean, the classic argument is giving a basic income, money for free, dissuades work. So let's deal with that one first.
All right, before he gives his answer, I'm going to give my own. If somebody told me that I would get paid a certain amount of income, then will I not work a shitty job like I do now? Of course, the fucking absolutely, I wouldn't work the same shitty job that I work now. I would try to do something different. I would do something better if I thought I had a fucking safety net. The fact is, because I have to work a job and have to keep a motherfucking roof over my head, there are certain shit that I put up with that if I had it my way, I wouldn't put up with. But yeah, no, fuck that. We'll let him talk about it.
Well, the first thing I should say about this is that is an empirical statement, so let's see what the evidence says, right? You can just do experiments, and there have been lots of experiments since the 70s where they have actually given people free money, sometimes quite a lot of it, just to see what happens. And every single time they found that the work disincentive effects are very, very limited. Sometimes they're just not there, sometimes they're very small, and they're compensated by people doing other useful stuff, right? More volunteers work, caring for the kids, caring for the elderly. So that's a good thing.
So, yeah, point number one, if people didn't have to fucking work as hard as they do to fucking make it, maybe people would do shit that has value other than bringing a check. Maybe they will do more volunteer work. Maybe they will take the time to motherfucking stay at home with their kids so they can actually spend more time and connect with their kids. Maybe they will just fucking go to a soup kitchen and feed other motherfuckers that need some fucking help. For you to say that people wouldn't work as hard, it's like saying, because we not browbeating you in order to... Oh, shit. I think I need you, dog. Dude, die. You fucktard. But yeah, if you weren't just browbeaten in order to work, then maybe you may actually want to work in a field that fits your specialty or your skills. Maybe that's a fucking awesome thing to do. But let's continue.
The more fundamental thing that I could say here is that actually basic income helps us to completely rethink what work actually is. because we have such a simplistic or old-fashioned definition of work, right? We say work is this thing you do for an employer, and they pay you a wage, and you pay taxes over that, and that's it. Actually, there's a lot of paid work that is not very useful.
And this is what you call bullshit jobs.
Yeah, that's David Gray.
I have a bullshit job. I just want to say it. I know I have a bullshit job. It works for me because it pays the bill, but I have a bullshit job. I will say that I do. But let's continue.
Graeber, an American
Yes,
anthropologist. It's an academic term now,
Yeah.
so
It's
not my invention.
It's not rude.
Yeah.
It's,
Some people call it socially useless jobs.
yeah, I think bullshit jobs gets there.
Okay, bullshit jobs. So a couple of months ago, there was some research being published by 2 Dutch economists. And what they did is they looked at a huge data set where people from more than 30 countries were being asked this question. Do you think your job adds anything of value to society? You know, are you productive in any meaningful way? And turns out that 25% of the workforce in rich countries says, not sure, maybe not, probably not. 25%. So just think about how radical, how bizarre that is. That's like 5 times the unemployment rate. And I'm not talking about teachers or nurses or care workers here. You know, I'm talking about bankers and corporate lawyers and accountants, people with great salaries who went to Oxford and Cambridge, and we spend a lot of money educating them. And they're often very talented and smart as well. And then they go on and do these jobs that are completely useless. They do that for 20, 30 years, then they have their midlife crisis, and then they use all that money they extracted from the rest of the population to paint for the rest of their lives or something like that.
Exactly.
This is getting dangerously like a scene from Fight Club. But to bring it back to policy one.
All right, so if you actually caught that, like, quite literally, he's saying that there are people who do all of these jobs, all of these horrible ass, like, they get paid lots of money. They are paid well for their soul. But in the end, they say, I want to go ride motorcycles by the time I'm 45. Or they go learn fucking different trades by a certain amount of time. And it's just like, really? All the rest of us are struggling, and because you're rich and wealthy, your ass can actually go, you know, say, well, I don't feel that I want to do this anymore. So, and you go and fucking, I don't know, live your dream of driving across country, retiring at 50. Fuck it.
Conquering. Again, one of the objections is how does this relate to the pre-existent and often invariably hugely complicated benefit system in a society? I mean, you know, if you were to introduce a basic income in Britain, how would it replace the benefit system? Would it be supplementary to it? How would it work?
It's important to emphasize here that there are many versions of basic income out there. So there are some really bad or even horrible versions of basic income that are being advocated. So there are some, for example, American libertarians who say, let's just abolish the whole welfare state and just give people one small cash grant.
And so this is the Andrew Yang plan, which is bullshit, but let's continue.
I'm not in favor of that. In fact, I think that would be disastrous.
Yes.
A basic income would really be a supplement to the great achievements of the 20th century, right? Universal healthcare, quality public education, and then a universal basic income or guaranteed basic income. That's really the way I think about it. Now, how do you finance it? There are obviously 1,000 ways to finance it, and I'd like to finance it in a way that it will reduce inequality. Also important to emphasize here, there are ways that you could finance a basic income that it will actually increase inequality, right? So the devil is in the details here.
Okay, well, which leads us to, I think, what lies at its core, which is an assumption about human nature. Because the traditional assumptions that underpin a lot of these debates is that, you know, if you give people money for free, they will just do nothing. It's a core argument of your book, this is not so. And it's not just an assertion, you back it up. I mean, tell us about your researchers showed about how people behave when you give them free money.
Well, this is the fascinating thing I've experienced so many times, is that you ask people, what would you do with a basic income? And most people say, you know, I've got dreams, I've got ambitions, don't worry about me, you know, I've got wonderful plans. And then you ask them, what will other people do with a basic income? And they're like, oh, other people. Well, they'll probably waste it and spend it on drugs or alcohol. You know, that's human nature, you know, that's sort of how it works.
Conjugate the verb, I build, you do drugs. There you go. He ends up in prison,
Yeah. I guess this is what my next book is about, because it's such a deep and fundamental thing that we get wrong all the time, is that we assume that most people are selfish. Well, in fact, not. Most people want to cooperate with other people and want to contribute something to society. And that's what you find time and time again if you look at the...
All right, so I would disagree that most people are not selfish. I would say most people look at their own self-interest, and one of them is pertaining to a community and making sure that everybody else actually is taken care of. Now, what I mean by that is, personally, I deplore seeing human suffering. It's funny when nobody's really hurt, but I just deplore just human agony. Oh, that shit just tugs at my heartstrings. I would not wish agony on any of my worst enemies. Wouldn't. I don't give a fuck who you are. But just human agony? No, fuck that. We're better than that. And so, this is one of those things where we could actually do a lot better than we're doing. And for it to be universal, it should be fucking universal. But let's continue.
The evidence. The thing is, we're just basically being brainwashed by this product that we call the news, right? And the news is all about exceptions, about things that go wrong, about crises, about terrorism. So if you watch a lot of the news, at the end of the day, you know exactly how the world does not work. And you have a completely misguided view of human nature.
Now, even more radical, and part of the book I personally found attractive, was the arguments for open borders. But this is so spectacularly counterintuitive at the moment. I think I'm right that the book first came out in Dutch in 2014, is that correct? Yeah. Since then, there's...
All right, so the conversation about open borders. I'm not somebody who believes in open borders in the sense of I'm somebody who believes that open borders for transportations of people and goods are a fucking good thing. But I do not believe in there should not be any lawful passings of different areas, because here's the thing, guys. I guess I can actually classify it as this. You should always treat borders like, okay, so we actually treat borders. I live in Chicago, which is on the border of Indiana and Illinois. On the border. You know what I can do? I can cross into that border without getting shit. Now, there are people who are, they're Illinois State Police and Indiana State Police. And they don't give me shit for actually going to another state. And that's how I think we should actually treat a lot of countries, especially countries where there's no open hostilities. Come on, guys. Let's go.
There's been, a huge surge in right-wing populism, Trump's election, Brexit. building the notion of walls, identitarianism throughout Europe, and nativism. So it's fair to say, I think,
Nationalism.
that the argument in favour of open borders is not actually winning the day,
Yeah.
which is not to say it's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's what I really wanted to ask you is, starting from where we are, rather than from in a kind of intellectual laboratory, how do you get to the point where, I mean, you deal with a lot of the myths about immigration, but they are very entrenched. How do you build an intellectual and narrative rooted in empiricism, but also in ideas and emotions, that will bring people to realize that, as you say, that actually open borders are a massive generator of wealth?
Well, I really think we need the historical perspective here. So my view as a historian is that
let's hear
history
it.
is the most subversive of all the sciences. The main message of history is things can be different.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing inevitable about the way we've structured our society and economy right now. So if you think about borders, for example, or the nation state, it's a fairly recent invention, It's really a product of the 19th century. And for example, passports, they hardly existed at the beginning of the 20th century. And
So this is actually pretty interesting. Yes, you had countries who went to war and fought over shit, but you really can travel. It's a reason why backpacking through Europe is a thing. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh, what's the other one? Oh, Excel. Come on, no. But it's a reason why backpacking through a country is a thing. Come on. Y'all motherfuckers. Really? Well, let's continue.
the countries that issued them, like Russia and the Ottoman Empire, were considered, backwards countries. So an interesting question always to ask as a historian is, how will people of the future look back on us? Because we can look back on people in the Middle Ages, right?
Yeah.
And we look at, those witch hunts and all those barbarian things that were going on, and we're like, oh, these people were terrible. We're so civilized right now. But then the question is, of course, what are the barbarian things we are doing right now? Let's say in the year 2200. What will they say about us? What's the most horrible thing we're doing right now? We just consider it common sense. And borders might be one of those things, because borders are responsible for the biggest, discrimination that's going on. Like 60% of your income is dependent on the fact where you were born. It's apartheid on a global scale, basically. And most of the objections we have against immigration, they're all terrorists, they're all criminals, they don't work, they take our jobs, etc. I go over all of them in their book. They destroy social cohesion. Many of them have actually also been adopted these days by the left. But if you look at the actual evidence, there's not much there. There's really not much there.
So, to put it in its purest and ghastliest topicality, how would you, if you were confronted with a dismayed Brexit voter, explain to them that open borders are a good thing?
That's a great question. So I would.
And so let's actually talk about this. Now, this is an example of open borders. The European Union. Europe didn't have this massive, huge wave of just fucking horrible terrorist plots because fucking reasons. No. They had fucking open borders for years. What happened with the European Union actually founded? It's just that a lot of people actually They were scared. They were scared that they were going to lose their economic power. That's why Brexit happened, really. They thought they were paying to some big unnamed known government and they were stealing their monies, where reality, they were actually getting more out of the system than they was putting in. But let's continue.
Use the language of patriotism. That's the first thing. This is often a problem with many people on the left and progressives, is that they only use the language of care and of injustice, yes. Right? And there's a certain part of the population that is receptive to that kind of question. You say, oh, it's so horrible what's happening to these refugees, or it's so horrible what's happening to these poor people, we should help them. But you don't win elections with that, right? So you need other things. One thing you could do is to say, we're the best country on earth, yeah. Right? And we can handle this. Like what Angela Merkel did in Germany. Like, we're schaffen us because we're Germans, right?
So this is actually funny. Like, ironically, it was Germany that took in a lot of refugees. And you know what? They actually really did say, we are the best country in the world. We can actually do this shit. And look what happened. Yeah, you had some upheaval. You did have some upheaval. But it was never to the extent that it was dangerous. But let's continue.
Right? So the French couldn't schaffen this. They couldn't do it. The British certainly couldn't do it. But we're Germans. We can handle this. We're good at organizing stuff. That was a very patriotic statement.
Wow.
And many people said that it would become our downfall. Well, last time I checked, she's still there. Yeah. So that's one of the ways.
Because it seems to me that now it's become baked into political discourse. Mm-hmm. I mean, would you agree that, in a sense, of all the things you recommend in the book, including the shorter working week and so on, that is perhaps the one that is going to take.
That's what I would.
That's the biggest tanker to turn on borders. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Oh, it's definitely by far the most utopian idea of my book. I think basic income, we could easily do that right now. We've got the means, we've got the research. It's not economics that's holding us back. It's not technology that's holding us back. It's really ideology, an outdated, out of fashion definition of what work is. But with open borders, it's obviously different. But I am trying to change the conversation there. And I'm trying to use history in a way to open people's eyes and just to show that nothing about this is inevitable. And we could have a very different conversation around this.
To return to the Davos intervention, as it will one day be called, I'm sure, in a film starring a Hollywood star. The whole question of taxes is fascinating because, as we said at the start, I mean, for 20, 30 years, the assumption of the Laffer curve that reaches a point where the more you raise taxes, the less revenue you get, has been absolutely sacrosanct. Mm-hmm. First of all, do you take issue with the Laffer curve? And secondly, if you do, what sort of taxes do you envisage raising? Mm-hmm. Because there's an assumption in British politics, at least, that although you could probably squeeze some more out of income tax from the wealthier, that it's high time we started to tax wealth, particularly as we are an aging society and so on.
Well, the standard argument, of course, and this argument was always made by Thatcher, is that if you have higher taxes, the rich will work less, they'll produce less wealth, and we'll all be poorer in the end. I think that if you look at the latest evidence that we have from economics, it turns out that actually the opposite is true.
All right, so there's an argument that if you don't pay rich people as much money as you possibly can, then they're not going to work as well. And you know what happens when rich people don't want to work? They don't create jobs, which is patently false because they still love motherfucking money. But let's continue.
There's a good case to be made that if you have higher taxes on the wealthy, that you make certain things not profitable anymore. Because we have got a lot of very rich people right now who do earn a lot of money, but don't really contribute anything, right? If you zoom in on their business models.
Why do they earn a lot of money?
Well, it's a bit like, why did pirateers in the 17th century earn a lot of money, you know?
Well, by taking it from other people.
They were
Damn.
really, exactly.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that, let's assume we're in the 17th century, right? And I would say, let's abolish piracy. Piracy is not productive. These people are just murdering people and raping,
Wow.
raping people and just stealing other people's stuff. It's not productive. And then imagine that someone else would say, yeah, but then hundreds of pirates will lose their jobs. That's horrible.
That shit is awesome. Let's say in piracy, but hundreds of pirates will lose their job. Boo hoo, boo motherfucking who. But let's continue.
But that's
Yes.
basically the debate we're having right now.
How
When
to
right?
turn pirates into teachers and
Yeah.
social workers.
Yeah, let them do something useful.
Let them do something well,
Yeah.
indeed, yeah. Teachers of the Caribbean would be a very good thing.
Okay,
So-
that shit was funny.
But again, I mean, we come back to an analysis about human nature, because you say in the book, I'm quoting, higher taxes would get more people to do work that's useful. And that's a huge statement.
Yeah, but you actually see it in the there's good evidence from the U.S. here, is that economists argue that the tax cuts in the Reagan era made it more attractive for Ivy League graduates, you know, the most talented and smartest people, to go to either Silicon Valley or to Wall Street. And they, before that, they went to, like, say, universities or other government organizations or research organizations, thinking about, you know, how to get to Mars or something like that. I actually spoke a couple of months ago. I spoke with Kasparov, you know, the great chess player who.
That's actually pretty interesting, where when you get tax cuts, tax cuts for the wealthy people, more people try to be rich. Wow, that's almost as if you're saying that let's not incentivize our best and brightest minds to go out for just themselves. But let's continue.
Who was beaten by this computer Deep Blue,
Deep Blue,
at the end of the 90s. And he was explaining that when he grew up, like, smart people his age were really all dreaming, you know, they wanted to become astronauts.
Yeah.
But then something shifted in the 80s and the 90s, and people wanted to become bankers. And after that, they wanted to go to Silicon Valley, until they realized, as one former employee of Facebook put it, is that the best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most depressing things of today, is that there are so many smart people in the great capitals of this world, you know, in New York.
So yeah, that's fucking awful. And I hate to say it like this, but it is fucking awful. We get just like, you get people that could be using their talents for so much better shit, but instead they're using it to try to fleece some more out of everybody. But let's continue.
In London and Los Angeles, so many smart people utterly wasting their talents on stupid nonsense, basically.
The obvious collision, I suppose, is if you have higher tax regimes and open borders, will you have people fleeing to low tax regimes to carry on doing useless jobs?
Mm-hmm. Well,
All right, so this is a point that I was making in a recent video about taking the borders off of state lines. Yeah, you're going to get people that's going to inevitably try to go to a cheap place. But that trick only works for so long, because what ends up happening is you get the fact that those cheap places don't have quality workers. And you're going to pay for fucking quality. So let's continue.
here the question is obviously how all of these ideas would work together, right? I think that the purpose of utopian thinking is not to sketch some kind of blueprint. It's not what I'm trying to do in this book. Like, here's this perfect world where you have open borders, a guaranteed basic income, and I thought everything through. Sure. Obviously not. The purpose of utopias is, or utopian thinking, is to ask the right questions, right? And to make us envision a society that might be radically better. But then, just experiment along the way. just one small step after one small step. So I'm obviously not arguing we should abolish all borders overnight, but just thinking about borders in that way, are they not one of the most unjust things we have right now? Just helps open up conversation, I think, and helps open up your mind.
Which I think leads to a very interesting kind of governing theme in the book, which is that one of the big questions that emerged from 2016 was, why was it that the Brexiteers and Trump were able to mobilize an emotional narrative, and the Remainers and Hillary Clinton's campaign were so conspicuously not able to? And I think that progressives have wrestled, particularly progressives who are very, very wedded to evidence-based, very dry approaches. And you say quite openly in the book that they're, a lot of what they say is dull, and also that they play underdog too often, which is slightly...
And so this is actually pretty fun because, yes, usually progressives are evidence-based and then they try to play the feelings. No, start fucking playing that fucking feeling about... Stop trying to play the pity game and start trying to play that fucking feeling of, oh shit, he's corrupted. I'm not going to get my ass ate today. Phrasing. Pause. But nah. They say, well, then you should have pity for these people. No. Tell motherfuckers, if you give poor people have more money, then you have more money too. All that money that you waste on security and shit because somebody needs to fucking escape from reality by buying drugs, you don't have to pay that because these people are gonna fucking feel better. Yeah, shit like that. Kiss all of my ass. Anyway, or man, tell them like they gonna get more money, but so will you. Shit like that. Don't sit back and say, well, you should have pity for these people. No, have pity for your goddamn self and make sure that you can actually get some money for you by helping everybody. Like Wilson Fisk says, a rising tide lifts all boats.
A different point. So here we are in 2019, and you've already alluded to what's going on in America. What's the future narrative? Taking your kind of utopian charge, what should be the next steps in this?
Well, it seems to me that the issue with Hillary Clinton was that it almost seemed like her slogan was, no, we can't, right? That's not going to happen. Yeah. That's too expensive. I looked at it, believe me, it's not going to work. Yeah. you don't really win elections with that, right? One other frustrating thing was that just after the elections, she did an interview where she said that actually her campaign had considered an idea called Alaska for America. Turns out that Alaska has this basic income already since the early 70s. It was instituted by a Republican governor called Jay Hammond.
All right, so the thing about it is, this is what Andrew Yang talks about, but you actually see him go a totally different way from what it actually is beneficial to people, because again, he tries to cut the safety net along with saying, hey, you need money and we want to cut the safety net. So shit like that. But let's continue.
And his idea was, we've got all this oil in the ground here. That's everyone's property. So we're just going to sell that oil, and then everyone receives a dividend each year, which is around $2,000 per individual. Adds up to, can add up to $8,000 for a family of four. It's quite substantial. It's one of the reasons why Alaska has the lowest inequality in all of the states in America. So Hillary Clinton's idea was, or her campaign's idea was, this is the perfect marriage between conservative and progressive thinking, right? Alaska for America. I thought it was wonderful. But then she told that 3 months after she'd lost the election. So you can imagine that was quite a frustrating moment for me.
Not great synchronization.
Yeah.
It's interesting, if you look at the Trump State of the Union speech, there were two things that were striking. One was that there was this sort of extraordinary presence of white-clad newly elected female representatives, AOC being the most obvious, very joyous moment, but also that Trump said America will never be socialist, which suggests to me that he thinks that this is now a serious issue.
Yeah.
Did you...
Damn it!
What's your interpretation of the American landscape post-midterms?
Well, I think it's a really interesting thing
I grew
that
up in the desert.
what a politician like Donald Trump and a politician like AOC have in common, and I know this phrase is weird, have in common in this case, but they do have something in common. They talk about winning.
All right, guys. I'm actually about to get off for today, but I want to thank everybody who's watched. See you later on this weekend. Peace.